I moved to Pasadena in the early 60s, down when all the African Americans and Latinos stayed in one part of Pasadena where the old domestic headquarters was for all, all the black and brown folks served all the rich white folks that was down there in Orange Grove. So when I moved here, I lived on Waverly Drive. And in fact, I don't know if you guys know the Youngbloods, but they're a black family that have been here forever. They were our first friends when we moved here from the projects in LA. And I went over to their house, and I was surprised because they didn't even have a toilet in their house. I said, Albert, man, what's up? No toilet. He said, yeah, we use the outhouse. So this is 1963. And I said, wow, they don't even have a toilet in the house. And I was just amazed. And then I realized that in our neighborhood, that surrounding neighborhood, which is predominantly black, brown, and Native American, that everybody there was of the same income level, and that we were from a different part of Pasadena that no one really knew about. You didn't see our neighborhood, when the Rose Parade was televised and all that stuff. Anyway, so I immediately fell in love with Pasadena and my community, and that community was that community of color. From there, we moved into Northwest Pasadena because, as I explained to you earlier, my mother is Japanese, my father's African American and Native American, and there was another black and Japanese family in this area right here in Northwest Pasadena who my mother had connected with, and so they kind of hung out together, and then from there, that's sort of the history. Then they started populating. I have 9 siblings, 2 that are not here, and then I have 13 cousins that you guys know. The Thomas is the other side of the Thomases, and we've been here our entire lives. Well, the better question is, what school didn't I attend? So I started out at Garfield, which no longer exists, and it was down where the Vons is on Pasadena Avenue in California. And then from there, I went to McKinley, and then from there, I went to Washington, and then from Washington, I kind of did some things I shouldn't have been doing, and I got involved, and so I paid a little debt to society. So I was out of the mainstream population for almost 2 years. Then I came back, and I went here to Muir. I came back and went to Blair for 10th grade, and then I went to Muir for a very short period of time, and then I wound up at PHS. And from PHS I went to continuation, Foothill continuation. Then I went back to PHS, and Lord have mercy, I graduated.
All right.
So it was, and I really owe all of that pushing and prodding and getting through school, because I really didn't enjoy school. The whole experience, the whole academic experience, I found absolutely distasteful, and I thought it didn't allow for us or the students to really. There was no room for self-evaluation, self-examination. It was always about, you're going to do this, do this, do this. So anyway, from continuation, I went to PHS, and I graduated from PHS. But Obeah was instrumental in pushing me through, Outward Bound Adventures, pushing me through all of the schools. Obeah Outward Bound Adventures is an outdoor education organization dedicated to upgrading the academic and social skills of urban kids, specifically those kids who historically have been absent from the environmental career field, conservation field. But Obeah has a dedication to making sure that there is diversity in its groups. So as you recall, and as I did too, in 1968 when I got involved the same year Dr. King was assassinated. I got involved with Obeah. And I remember being on the bus and there being white kids on the bus, because McKinley was a pretty diverse school. And I remember saying, this is my really first encounter with having, a close encounter with having sustained contact with white folks, And it really enriched my experience, because I had this real different view of what white people were, And thanks to Obeah, it changed that entire perspective. So yeah, and Obeah takes kids out on these challenging wilderness and environmental and learning trips, to learn about the environment and to learn about themselves, you know. So, and pushes you past your perceived limits. The founder of Obeah, Helen Mary Williams, had this penchant for identifying kids that didn't seem to be able to make it in the regular mainstream school population, but she identified potential in young people. Like him, she identified potential in him. And she did the same for me. And so she said, hey, you know what, I got something that you might want to do instead of running the streets on the weekend. Why don't you come out, go camping with us? And I had no interest really in camping at the time. I didn't even know what camping was. But I did. I went camping, and it had a profound impact. It didn't change some of my behaviors immediately, but it most certainly broadened my horizon, so I knew there were other options out there. And that's what was really important, that I knew, oh, there's something else out there. Oh, there's an island right off the coast of LA called Catalina, and I can go out there, and, you know, so that kind of stuff. That's what got me involved, because she was my 8th grade science teacher. She taught at McKinley, and I had gotten kicked out of 3 other classes, and so she said, look, don't expel the boy from school, let him stay in my class for those 3 classes. And she soon grew to regret that, but but she suffered through me, and I managed to keep me there for another year, and then I wound up going to Washington.
Okay.
But it was because of her and her science class that I got involved in Obeah. Oh, not to mention that all of my siblings, older siblings, had already been involved. So Danny, Fawn, Lark, and Frankie had already been involved in Obeah, and I heard about it through them. I'm the executive director, and basically what I do is I design the programs, and I hire the staff and train the staff. One of the big things about Obeah is that we like our staff to reflect the community that we serve. So we're constantly searching for staff that come from the communities that our kids come from, that look like our kids that we serve. We serve, you know, a lot of African Americans, a lot of Latinos, a lot of Asians, and that can relate really well to our population. And so we created this program called DALI. That's right, actually right here. Diverse Outdoor Leaders Institute. And what it is it's a 12-week training program to take regular folks, just like you guys, and send you through our training program, so at the end of the 12 weeks, you're ready to run courses and be one of our staff persons. So that's what I do. I oversee all the operations and the development, and work with the board of directors to make sure the organization exists. We're in our 54th year now. That's a painful question. How are we getting our funding? Well, individuals, right now we're working off of government contracts that are quickly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But we're about to do a major fundraising campaign. My work at Obeah is a volunteer. I work here as a volunteer. But I believe so strongly in the cause and the mission that I'm willing to do that. We recently ran out of administrative money for my salary, but I told the board, I'm here for the long run, and I will be here because I know that we're doing the right thing, and ultimately we'll get the money that we need. There's never a lack of young people that need to be served. Oftentimes there's a lack of funding that allows you to serve those kids, but there's never a lack of young people that really can use what we do. I think there are 3 key things that our community can do. One of them is get the word out that Obeah is working with young African American males and females and if they don't have the funding to go on a trip, that's not going to be a deterrent for us. As I tell the mothers and the fathers, if you don't have the money, don't worry about that. That's the least thing I'm worried about. So get the word out and identify those kids that really could use the restructuring and the leadership skills and the education that Obeah brings. Our curriculum is STEAM and STEM aligned, meaning it's state, it's aligned with state credit, academic standards, and we really do upgrade the academic skills of the kids. So the first thing is get the word out. The second thing is if our community is looking for part-time work, let us train you to become staff, instructors, instructor 1, 2, or 3 in our organization, and give back to the community that way. You'll get something in your pocket, but it won't be what you normally make if you were working a regular 9 to 5. Well, it might be more for that matter. But let us train you and help us with this movement that we have, is to engage our community in the conservation and environmental field. We are so highly underrepresented out there. African Americans are incredibly underrepresented in the conservation and environmental field. I used to go into conferences, to be 500-600 people talking about what we're talking about, and there'd be two folks of color in there. And I think the third thing is donate. Help us support these kids in our program by giving generously to this program. And every penny that you give will go to, it directly equates into impacting some young person's life. It's not like we're sitting around, you saw what kind of car I drive, you see where our money. It's just our money goes into running this program. Those are 3 things that the community can help with. The shifting demographics in Pasadena reflect what's going on in America, so the Latino population is extremely large.
Yes.
And that population is stepping in where African Americans, they're moving out. They've gone on to San Bernardino, to Victorville, to Palmdale, even to Atlanta, some way out in Marietta or wherever, way out there. And so when we used to work in Pasadena, when I say used to, in the 70s, 80s, and even the beginning of the 90s, when Northwest Pasadena was 35% African American, we are only 9% now. And so it's reflective, our demographic base of the kids we serve is reflective of the community. So there's more Latinos than there are African Americans now. But we're still trying to get a diverse constituency, and we are just bringing in, when I say bringing in, we're trying to recruit more from the non-communities of color to make sure that our kids do have that same rich experience I had back in the day when I said, wow, this is my first time having sustained contact with white folks. What I am disappointed in is the fact that more African Americans are not aware of the therapeutic value that you can receive from time spent in wild places and open spaces. That's what I'm disappointed about, is that we as a community have not reaped those benefits that most other communities do. And we have to sort of remove the stigma and the idea that we're going to get dirty or bugs in our hair and sleep on the ground and all that other stuff. And just know that if, 700,000 people across the United States are doing something, it must be something good to it, But Obeah has a very special type of trip that is a little bit more accommodating. But we don't want, we don't exclusively focus on the African American community, but we know those are the most highly underserved folks in this industry. And so we are really trying to engage that, so engage that community. So the long answer, or the short answer of that is, yes, I'm disappointed that the African American community is not more involved. But the disclaimer is, I understand why, and it's up to us to make sure that they understand. We need to be working in the environmental field.
That's right. That's where everything is going now. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's what we're about, is getting them ready for careers in conservation. That's how I wound up in there. That's why I wound up with 3 degrees in the thing, And I can go out and I'm marketable still. As old as my ass is, I can go out and market myself because I have degrees in environmental science.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's because of this place. I owe it. That's why I'm working here right now. Future plans for Obeah is to connect directly with Akebulon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Akebulon, which is the African American Unity Center over on Raymond, and we're going to help them rebuild and serve that population. Is to become a conservation corps so that we can employ kids and careers in conservation, and have them with us a much longer period of time, and to expand our service area to much needed greater areas just outside of Pasadena, Altadena, and into Los Angeles, all across Los Angeles, San Bernardino, into those communities that don't have opportunity to do what we do.